Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe. There is good out there. We oppose deception. Conduit closing.
Very importantly, I'm hereby directing the Department of Defense and Pentagon to immediately begin the process necessary to establish a Space Force as the 6th branch of the armed forces. That's a big statement.
From Chief of Operations to all governments, militaries, and citizens of Earth. Subject: the awakening of the old gods from stasis chambers. This is an official SSP Alliance release. To combat counterintelligence campaigns, we are releasing a series of briefings, straight from our highest-ranking officers without intermediaries. We strongly recommend that you disregard information that is not coming directly from us. The disclosures we have brought forward have been compromised. Fake secret space program veterans, super soldier imposters, and ET contactees have released considerable misinformation. To keep humanity from fighting for freedom, with a false sense of security, they are peddling the narrative that the Mars colonies, Moon, and Antarctica bases have been liberated from the gray alien and reptilian forces. In our last briefing, we described the Global Galactic League of Nations, GGLN, Declaration of Independence, from the interplanetary corporate conglomerate, ICC, and associated Earth governments. This briefing will describe ICC's meeting with the Pre-Adamites and awakening the old gods from their stasis in Antarctica. In early November of 2021, the Mayans held a meeting on board their vessel, equipped to breach highly secure facilities and cities of the Orion Group. The meeting participants included the Ansher delegation, SSP Alliance Council members present in prior reconnaissance missions, Gonzalez, 4 Mayans, the Zulu Elder Emi, and Good. The Mayans had the ICC under constant surveillance since Emi's appearance at the secret ICC meeting weeks prior at the Lunar Operations Command, LOC. After Emi and the New Guardians delivered their message to the ICC met with the Orion Group and rogue members of the Super Federation. They decided to expedite implanting humans on Earth with their technology to convert them to a new one-world transhumanist religion.
We have these angelic types of ETs and amoral types of ETs that are trying to assist us to ascend through the spiritual means. But we also have a group of ETs that we call AI prophets, and they worship some sort of artificial intelligence signal.
The ICC leadership and the intuitive empaths that attended the meeting felt fear and insecurity within the attendees, prompting the ICC Super Board to take a drastic course of action. The Mayans observed a large ICC delegation traveling from the Moon to Antarctica, where excavations decades prior revealed an ancient city with the remains of 3 large motherships. These ships belonged to a group of Pre-Adamites who created a large civilization on Earth that lasted over 50,000 years before the appearance of modern humans. The Pre-Adamites had a vast empire on a planet called Maldek, a planet referred to as a super-Earth by astronomers. Maldek was much larger than our Earth, with a stronger gravitational field and atmospheric barometric pressure, and had multiple moons in orbit. One of the moons was habitable and terraformed by tall human-like beings with large skulls. Another group of beings, with its own royal family, moved to the habitable moon and established a parallel kingdom and civilization. After thousands of years, this group started evolving into a slightly different, shorter phenotype.
They were slightly different. The beings on Tiamat were slightly taller and had different shaped skulls. The beings on Maldek were slightly skinnier and smaller, and again had slightly different skulls, but they were genetically related. They were considered basically cousins, and they had royal families from both sides that were in competition with each other and warred with one another.
These 2 warlike civilizations had a dispute over resources with other civilizations in our local stellar neighborhood. Subsequently, they decided to hijack an ancient defense grid that surrounded and protected our local stellar cluster. The ancient builder race built this defense grid at least 2 billion years prior. We know very little about the ancient builder race, whose ruins have been discovered in many star systems, including ours, with a defense grid to protect the developing civilization from outside interference. The ancient builder race created the defense grid, with millions of hollowed-out moons and minor planets. Offensive and defensive technologies were placed within moon-sized ships, and strategically placed around the local stellar neighborhood. They used powerful electrogravitational engines to pull time-space into a singularity connected to the cosmic web. The cosmic web is an electroplasmic channel of energy that connects all galaxies and star systems within them, both in subspace and space-time, as electromagnetic filaments. The ancient builder race's defense grid tapped into and fed the cosmic web with a frequency that prevented its portal system from connecting outside of the defense grid. Any ships or probes that tried a local stellar neighborhood were pushed back by non-lethal means. The defense grid prevented countless genetic farmer races from entering star systems and harvesting their genetics for experiments. The Pre-Adamites hijacked one of the hollowed-out moons that were part of the ancient builder race defense grid and anchored it in Maldek's orbit. They had generations of scientists with their families stationed on this moon, which served as a massive satellite space station. The scientists studied the hollowed-out moon for hundreds of years and redesigned it to include family housing for future generations. When the Pre-Adamites hacked into the defense grid, they discovered it was powered by a stable supergate portal closest to our solar system that connected neighboring galaxies. With the defense grid in place, its address would only loop back on itself or through natural portals and other local star systems. The Pre-Adamites were aware of the natural micronova cycle of each star in our galaxy. They developed the ill-conceived plan to use the ancient defense grid and its power as a weapon against their stellar neighbors.
In this case, the Pre-Adamites were trying to weaponize this natural system. And what they tried to do is use this feedback from this grid to cause the star of their enemies to go supernova and to then destroy the civilization. But they didn't time it right, the way that energy passes through this cosmic web, and they chose the exact wrong moment, and it caused our sun to superflare. And when it did, it destroyed Tiamat and ripped the atmosphere away from Mars, and it then also affected the atmosphere of Earth, and all of the other planets, their trajectories changed in this event.
The explosion devastated Maldek's moons and shifted them into new orbits around their star. The hollowed-out moon space station with Pre-Adamite scientists was thrown out of orbit and hurled towards the inner solar system. The micronova event destroyed most technologies on their massive space station. They managed to navigate and tidal lock the station to planet Earth, creating our only moon. Many Pre-Adamites were killed, but those who survived repurposed the extensive infrastructure created by the ancient builder race to preserve their civilization and culture. They also began creating colonies on Earth in the Antarctica region, where they found remnants of the ancient builder race underground cities with ancient technology. The moon served as a base to oversee and monitor their new settlement project.
So after the great destruction of Tiamat and Maldek was damaged beyond repairing itself, these Pre-Adamites took the moon as a giant ship, a giant conveyance. It was also in the vicinity of Tiamat. They hijacked the moon and flew it to the Earth, and they tidal locked it with the Earth to keep it in place. And they lived on the moon for thousands of years, observing the culture, the development of civilization going on the planet below, and at the same time having certain colonies down where they knew where ancient builder race remnants were.
The survivors of the catastrophe who were inside Earth's moon then suffered another massive cataclysm 55,000 years ago, and we now know that this was caused by a solar flash.
Another group of survivors of the initial explosion were the Pre-Adamites living on one of the terraformed moons in Maldek's orbit. After the destruction of Maldek, this moon became our planet Mars. On the official NASA pictures, you can see that one side of Mars was subjected to extensive meteorite showers, while the other is intact. On Mars, the Pre-Adamite civilization was desperate and struggled to survive due to the dissipating atmosphere. Eventually, the royal family and scientists determined that the sun would experience micronova again as part of its natural cycle and strip Mars of its remaining atmosphere. The Pre-Adamites on Mars decided to flee to Earth with their last 3 working motherships immediately before the solar event. The occupants of the moon were desperate to evacuate, as many of the moon's inhabitants as well. The 3 motherships made numerous trips to ferry their people to the new city in Antarctica, but did not have time to rescue everyone. The 3 motherships were on their way back to Earth after loading a group of individuals when the micronova occurred, resulting in catastrophic damage to the 3 ships and causing them to crash land near the new capital city. They immediately began to cannibalize the materials and technology to build the city that would be the new capital for their new civilization on Earth. After thousands of years, they built a new capital city on top of the ancient builder race ruins and developed a beautiful foundation for a new civilization.
And the remnants that survived that new catastrophe of Pre-Adamites loaded up into their last 3 motherships from their home planets, and they flew those down to Earth. They were damaged, and it was more of a crash landing. Later on, when our secret space program located the remnants of these ships under the ice in Antarctica, they named them the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. So when these 3 motherships crash landed, the Pre-Adamites that inhabited them began to cannibalize the technology and materials to build out a great civilization, and this civilization would later be known as Atlantis.
One of the consequences of the Pre-Adamites hacking into and using the ancient defense grid as a weapon was the total collapse of the grid. At that point, extraterrestrial races could enter the space that was quarantined for over 2 billion years. We refer to many of these as genetic farmer races because most of them were master geneticists and would interfere in planets' natural development and ascension. Other extraterrestrial groups were more interested in engaging previously untapped star systems in trade and commerce. Eventually, both groups were forced to join a super federation group that oversees and enforces cosmic law and trade disputes within this galaxy. The Pre-Adamites were already engaged in genetic experiments on their home planet for hundreds of generations and mixed their genes with various beings from Maldek. When they arrived on Earth, they continued their genetic experiments, splicing their DNA with other ET groups to create different engineered slaves.
This Pre-Adamite group, while their civilization was thriving on Tiamat and Maldek, they became very, very proficient geneticists. And they brought that with them to the Earth. And when they got to the Earth, they found inhabitants that were humanoid beings. They then started to play around with the genetics of these early humans and developed them into a number of different species, including hybrids with animals that they used as a slave force.
So the people who crash landed in what we now call Antarctica began to introduce their DNA into the genetic material of humans from Earth. And those people who were cloned out did have the elongated skull physiology. Apparently there were 2 royal lineages that go all the way back to the source planets themselves, and they have slightly different features. When you look at the elongated skulls, some of them have a distinct bun-like bump that looks almost like there is a ball on the surface of their head there, whereas other elongated skulls have a smooth slope without that bun-like protrusion. This apparently refers to the 2 major types of extraterrestrial lineages from this exploded planet.
So the Pre-Adamites thrived for thousands of years and became the Atlanteans.
They began to trade with several new genetic farmer races. They acquired even more advanced genetic engineering methods and technologies, promised by their new trade partners, the Orion Group, to benefit their civilization. The Pre-Adamites built out their civilization for over 50,000 years, and were very successful on Earth. The new technologies they obtained from the Orion Group advanced the Pre-Adamite civilization faster than they imagined. Once their scientists had developed and accepted the new nanotechnology's implants, they converted to the Orion Group religion. They didn't realize that introducing these new technologies would end the Pre-Adamite civilization. Those with implants who converted to the Orion Group religion forced the implants and the new religion on others who wanted to preserve the Pre-Adamite legacy and way of life. A civil war erupted due to the division, causing chaos. At the same time, they started suffering from the end times madness and highly irrational behaviors caused by the solar energies. Under normal circumstances, they would not have missed the changes in the solar energies, which negatively affected their health and consciousness. They would have prepared and protected themselves. However, Pre-Adamites were preoccupied with the unrest, and under the influence of nanites, that they failed to realize the imminent solar event.
And they worship some sort of artificial intelligence signal that we don't know where it came from. We are told that most likely what happened is that somebody dabbled somewhere where they shouldn't and created some sort of rip between realities. And in the reality where this AI signal came from, there was a mass consciousness that was an electromagnetic life form. And that electromagnetic life form bled into our reality, and because it's an electromagnetic life form, it is able to control and manipulate technology at will. They take those technologies and turn them on the biological species that created them. There are two major paths in the ascension process. One of them is an organic, spiritual evolution, and the other one is a technological evolution. The easiest way to relate the technological evolution would be the trend of transhumanism that has developed on our planet as we have developed our technology. So, in star system after star system, we have systems that are infested with artificial intelligence signals and actual technology taken over by this AI. What I've been told is that when we have this next micronova event, that the electromagnetic pulse that emanates is expected to destroy this entire AI signal and infrastructure that is in our solar system, thus freeing us from any type of influence from this AI. I was also told that at the end of every age, there is also a great revealing or apocalypse that occurs that reveals all of the secrets that have been hidden from humanity and is a part of the disclosure and ascension process.
Less than 300 pre-Adamite royals and scientists made it to the stasis chambers on the remnants of 3 motherships. They also managed to save some genetic creations in stasis chambers on adjacent floors. The cosmic trials from the old solar cycle are now underway. Woe to those of you who will be tried for this one. For the first time, humanity is in charge of the timeline decisions. The choice humans make and the timeline we choose will define the solar event and the trials themselves. Good described one of his remote viewings, while serving in the 20 and Back program on Solar Warden, regarding a solar flash. He described a plasma flash emanating from the sun and hitting the earth. All positively oriented people came together, holding hands and happily singing. All negative people looked like they were falling backward from Earth and disappearing. The Pre-Adamites set humanity on a negative timeline, but the choice is now ours, to repeat the negative timeline cycle, or choose freedom in a positive timeline. The new Guardians, the Federation of Local Planets, and the Super Federation are doing their part to help us, but our collective dictates their actions. They are waiting to see if we will stand up and refuse the current enslavement, or if we will collapse under our trauma, falling into another negative cycle. Be patient, be strong, stand up. We are in this together.